Before I get started with my presentation, I'd like you guys to review these questions. We all have a loved one that we're connected with. So how would you feel if that loved one just disappeared? Um, what would you do once that loved one disappeared? Do you know what you would do? Do you know how you control your feelings? Well, a lot of people don't. So this is what brings me to the subject of talking about death. So, of course, talking about death is a hard thing to do. Not many of us know how to do or what to talk about. There's many reasons why not to talk about it, but we'll get to that. First of all, I'm going to go to the story about how I came to talking about death today. This is me a year ago. I was happy. I had a security job that paid well, and this is my brand new Jeep. I have not even made a first payment on it. But later that night, I got in a horrible accident. My Jeep rolled 3 times, and this is my picture 3 weeks out of ICU. I almost died that night, and I have this awesome brain surgery scar to remind myself of it. I asked my husband what he would do once I had died, if that ever were to happen, God forbid. And he said he had no idea. He said he had no idea how he'd live without me. He had no idea how he'd pay for the burial. He had no idea how he would set up a burial. And he doesn't know what to do with my body. So that brings us to asking why we don't talk about death. We don't talk about death because the cost or the emotion that comes with it. We don't talk about it because it makes people uncomfortable thinking about it, thinking about not having somebody. We don't talk about it because different people's beliefs clash, or because we're afraid of the unknown. We're afraid of what happens next. But we're not going to worry about that right now. We're going to worry about grief and how to deal with it. So grief, it comes in 5 stages. It comes in denial, anger, bargaining, depression, and acceptance. People who are grieving don't necessarily go through all the stages in the same order, or go through all of them, experience all of them. But throughout each stage of grieving, there is a thread of hope. So, how do we heal from grieving? You're supposed to heal from grieving by accepting the reality of the loss. You gotta accept that it happened. Accept that your loved one died, your dog died. And then you gotta learn how to work through that pain of the grief. You gotta learn how to deal with it. You gotta learn how to move on from it. And then next, you have to adjust to your environment, adapt to not having that person there, doing things for yourself, doing things without them. And then emotionally relocate the deceased and move on with life. Make sure you know that he's not still your husband, he was your husband. Or she's not still your mother, she was your mother. It's important to know the difference. But I want to talk about more positive things, more positive death practices around the world. In Korea, they often create beads of cremation, and they display it in their house. They're never to be worn, but they're beautiful for display. And then in China, the color that you wear to a funeral is white because it's considered lucky for the soul to move on to its new journey in life. And they also bring professional wailers to funerals, so the immediate family feels more comfortable to cry out in public. But Japan's a little different. Japan goes full out for funerals. These are just flower sprays for displays around the casket. And Cremations are often divided up and spread throughout their community to people who know them. It could have been their family, it could have been the temple itself, it could have been his friends or employee or boss. They have 3 days a year that they celebrate death because they believe that spirits can bring curses or blessings to them. And it's a huge celebration in Japan. So the next, my favorite place to celebrate a funeral is going to be Ghana. So Ghana, they make these elaborate caskets. It could be a Coke bottle, an airplane, a rocket ship. It could be an animal or a box of cigarettes if the guy likes smoking so much. Funerals are often a community event. They post funerals on billboards so everybody can see and know to come. They record on radio stations, announce funerals, and let the other surrounding villages know so they can produce prayers for the family. Then next we have the Hindu faith. What they're showing here is a cremation at the river of Ganges. A lot of Hindu families don't have enough money to cremate, so they burn bodies right there at the river or just set the bodies afloat down the river. And this is a good thing because they're comfortable with the death. And sending them on that river sends them on a new journey. So the Muslims, they believe in something a little different than Hindus. When someone dies, it's a member of their community. So people that don't even know the person will arrive to a Muslim funeral because a member of the Muslim faith died. Muslims are always pointed towards Mecca when they die. And crying's expected, but wailing and shrieking is inappropriate. So they're a little more collected together. But if any of these funerals don't do it for you, you can always do the home funeral. Home funerals and home burials are two different things. Home funerals are when your family takes care of your body, washes it, preps it, puts it on ice, does its makeup, does its hair, dresses it. They take care of the body themselves. And a home burial, you can actually get a deed from your state or your county, and you can have a deed for your cemetery in your backyard if you have enough adequate land. And once you have that deed, you can bury your whole family in that backyard. It doesn't matter if it's in the same hole or whatever. But if having a home burial doesn't do it for you, you can have a sustainable burial. Sustainable burials are usually the body's wrapped in an all-natural cotton cloth, and they're placed in a natural cemetery where it's always kept in a natural state. And you can always buy those biodegradable urns that you put cremations in when the tree grows. That's always awesome. I thought that was neat. If you don't like natural burials like that, you can always donate your body to science. You can donate to Body World, Body Farms for forensic information. You can donate your body to a medical school of your choice. You can be an organ donor. You can donate your body to the military for research, or you can donate your body to be a crash test body or a crash test dummy for making vehicles more safe. Or you can do aquamation. Aquamation is the opposite of cremation. They use alkaline liquid to pummel your body until it's into a fine mush, and then they dehydrate that mush into a super fine powder. Or you can do a pyrite. A pry. It's only legal in Colorado, Uh, it's a outdoor cremation, so a Viking burial. Ooh. Last but not least, you can also have a burial at sea. You can throw your cremains into the sea, or you can make your cremains into a coral reef for wildlife and fish to live in and the ocean floor to grow around. Um, or you can do the best thing, which is casket sinking. They bore holes into the casket and sink it to the bottom of the sea, but you have to be a minimum of 3 nautical miles out to sea, and you have to obviously have a funeral director with you. So, reason why I'm telling you all this stuff is because talking about death matters. We need to talk about it. We need to normalize it so it's not such a detrimental blow to our society when something happens. I'm not saying it's a bad thing. I'm not saying it's a good thing. I'm saying it's natural and we need it. Death is natural and spiritual, and it's also meaningful. And we can improve on that meaning by discussing it with somebody you love. But all in all, love endures death. A loss of a significant loved one is something that's not gotten over. You're never finished with grief, but realistic goals of grief, like work, include regaining interest of life and feeling hopeful again. So let's help others feel hopeful again. I'd like to thank you all for listening to my presentation. It means a lot to me. It means a lot that you took the time to listen. And I hope you all have a great evening.